Alright, well, I'm going to make a little video out of my notes here that I had explaining to where I see the value of life and the potential value of life in spite of the problems and why I see things that way. Now, I'm going to talk about Gary in the third person. This was a reply to his video because I'm not talking to Gary anymore. You could try to see if an apology works, but I'm not going to go into your room anymore. I'm not going to bother trying to watch your videos or catching up with your videos. It's just not worth it. I'm very tolerant of you and your misunderstandings and your ignorance about science, and I just am not interested in tolerating your lack of tolerance as though you're the no nonsense. When you make up these crazy physical theories and you don't appreciate if they're entertained, I gotta listen to you with your little geometric ideas of light and shit. When there's a lot of information out there you could get, you don't even bother to try to understand. So the issue was about war and slavery and rape, which I'm characterizing as the negative things. And Gary's attitude is, well, there's lots of other things. And he used, for example, drug addiction, alcoholism, and that kind of thing, and divorce. Well, let's not talk about divorce, I figure, because that's something where we take marriage, the state has a say in marriage, and it takes marriage as a kind of indenture. Okay, so some extra misery is put on that situation because it's not taken as an at-will kind of thing. But I've said many times that if we lived in the closest thing that I can imagine as utopia, that people are still going to be upset. There's still going to be lost loves. There's still going to be rejection, social rejection. There's still going to be freak accidents. There's still going to be avoidable accidents. And I talk about war and slavery and rape because I think this is the gist of what I find unacceptable. That's something that we have to solve. There's no excuse. To a certain degree, I'm saying I can understand the absurdity of the natural universe. And I can accept that we have to make meaning in small domains, like you can have a loving family within this absurdity of a greater world, but I'm not willing to make room for war and slavery and rape. Now, I think, unlike divorce or lost loves, things like drug addiction is because the masses need an opiate. Now, why? It's because they're enslaved. They are in constant torture and pain to a certain degree. It might be more or less mild, but that is our economic and world system, and it has been for all of written history. And war leads to slavery and rape. Slavery and rape are symptoms. It's things that come from war, and it's not accidental, in my view, and it has to do with oppression. And I think a lot of things, like widespread addiction problems, have to do from the unhealthy situation, like what some population paranoia type people would attribute to overcrowding. I attribute to war and oppression and slavery. Slavery comes out of war, and I'm not willing to give up on the world or humankind until I saw those things eliminated. Then let's see what it's like. Now, one source of hope is, for example, this person, I've had this argument before, but I was bringing up my question, why do people act like they want things to go on forever? Why do people say, well, you're all going to die anyway, so no matter what you achieve, like something coming to an end is its failure? I don't understand that. And this person is claiming, sorry I don't remember the handle, this person's claiming, well, it's just human nature. That's the way humans are. If you're having a good experience, a good meal, a good concert, a good whatever, a good sports game, you want it to go on and on and on and on and on. And I'm saying, I don't. I get bored. I don't want the height of ecstasy forever and ever and on and on and on. I don't think, a 12-hour movie is better than a 2-hour movie, like 6 times better. No, I don't believe that. Okay? I believe that if you try to push things to a constant, this is so good, I want it to never end, that you are begging for it to crash and burn. Now, just a moment. Someone's here. So yeah, this is what I was talking about in my other video, that I think it's spiritually unhealthy to not accept mortality. And I like things to last a good amount of time. I don't have an infinite amount of energy, so I know my energy to enjoy them is not going to last forever. And I believe things lasting the right amount of time allows for a gentle landing. Okay, if you want to push it to maximize, and you're never going to give up, you're going to stretch, pump milk every last ounce out of it, then you are going to have a crash and burn. And it's not worth it. You are going to spend less time in ecstasy because it'll be harder to even be medium happy after your crash and burn. Okay, whereas if you land gently, you might be up in the air, hours later again. So this is a reason for hope, isn't it? Because maybe I'm just not human. Maybe it is human nature to be too stupid to realize that things are a matter of timing. So that's kind of annoying. That flip cam seems to drain two AA batteries in about a half an hour. So whatever. That's why I got some rechargeable batteries, but it's still using up energy. But the frustrating thing is I'm not going to go put some new batteries and go back out there, so screw it. I'm going to finish it in here. Now, the purpose of this is to practice stating things carefully. And maybe some of you have as much comprehension problems as Gary, and I suspect that is the case. So I'm answering mostly Gary's comprehension problems here. Sisyphus, or I'm addressing them. Answer would be the wrong word because that would imply I was going to listen to the reply to my answer, which I'm not. So Sisyphus, Gary got the idea, he claims, though he might be disingenuous, that's quite possible because he's also claiming, like, what's the big deal about getting rid of war and slavery? The possible approach could be to say that couldn't happen, but he's just like, well, what's important? Why is that even important? Who cares? There's so many more important things. Whatever. That's a matter of him having the wrong opinion. But here he gets it really. He claimed that with Sisyphus, I was saying that there's something in that myth that says you can get the boulder over the mountain and it's a utopia, which I never said at all. I was very clear, perhaps too clear. Now, part of me wants to speak slowly, but I think one thing I learned is that taking this stuff slowly with more information, more data, and more facts does not help communicate to people of comprehension difficulty, which seems to be more or less everybody to some degree, including myself. But I do understand what I'm saying. So let me just be quick with these points. Sisyphus, the original myth, Sisyphus is being tortured. It is akin to the other tortures in the afterlife, specially constructed for people, like the one for Prometheus, where his liver is eaten out, and then it regrows, and then it's eaten out, and then it regrows. That's what it's. Sisyphus is performing an exercise in futility, but it's used also as a metaphor by Camus, who says, yes, the universe is absurd, but you could create meaning. So what is the meaning of life? Is to create meaning. And if you can enjoy that, then you can enjoy life. Now, Gary tries to say that life, fighting and arguing for antinatalism, is meaningful enough to live. So there you go. There is a reason. And there's no reason you couldn't have children to try to do that as well. And he says, no, because that's morally wrong, because you're punishing, you're risking those kids in the misery. Well, that's an opinion. You can think that if you want, but I don't understand why you're going to have to go on, why you're going to eat food, and you're going to contribute to a shortage of food elsewhere and people's misery when you could go right now just as easily. So if it's a reason to go on living, it's a reason for the species to go on living. Now, obviously, antinatalism is not a reason to go on living. That's stupid. But fighting war and slavery and stopping rape is a reason. Is a reason. And the idea that you even need to try to stop rape, no, it is shows that there's room for improvement in the world. So, well, you shouldn't even have to argue that. Well, you shouldn't even have to make videos on the internet to say that. He also thought that nobody considers suicide as a philosophical matter. Well, I'm a kid that had a sort of dark sense of humor. I was aware of the crimes of nature. I was aware of the crimes of man. I was told about how dangerous and inevitable overpopulation was. I was told about the dark human nature, that things like the genocide of the Native Americans was from human nature, that enslaving was from human nature, that war was human nature. So I had a dark enough view about reality to see that there was a lot of misery, and I had enough brain fuck, mind fuck things going on in my childhood to consider that maybe life wasn't worth living. But I never felt like I couldn't handle life. And I thought that it would just all, with the enthusiasm of youth especially, I thought it would all just unravel fine for me personally. But that doesn't mean that the world is worth taking part in. So it is possible. I did do it, and it came about from the fact that I, at a young age, asked these kinds of questions, that I read the Myth of Sisyphus when I was a teenager, that I started reading Nietzsche when I was a teenager, that I read the Kierkegaards and these poetic philosophers that ask these kinds of questions, right? That I understood to be or not to be. That is the question. I understood those things. I was not unaware of tragedy in the world. But I myself did not think I had any great tragedy that would personally, I wasn't sitting there going, life is so sad, should I go on living? That wasn't the way in which I asked the question. So I was informing Gary about this, and he wants to doubt that that's possible. Well, that's just moronic. I mean, consider it a confession that perhaps I wasn't asking the question as a truly suicidal person does. So you could doubt that I was very suicidal, but I did ask the question. And my life was not all sweet. So perhaps, it was because of subconscious pain that I asked the question so sincerely, even though I personally did not feel ever, well, I can't go on. And the harder my life ever got, like for example, in my 20s, when I had my abusive relationship start and go on for so long, that never made me feel like committing suicide. Anytime I've had a real battle, I always felt like figuring it out. And in the case of that battle, it was like, well, I'm going to make you happy, honey. I learned how to be happy with my difficult and confusing childhood. I can help you do it. Let's fight to make this work. And that is my reaction to adversity, right? Maybe that's why I think that adversity generates the will to survive. Maybe it doesn't do that for everybody. Maybe, as one of your commenters has said, I can't be human, I guess, because I don't have a human nature as described by y'all. Okay, I don't want to have a 24-hour orgasm. I think that's fucking stupid. So, can you raise someone to fight a war? Yeah, I think you could, but it might be also possible just to try to improve the world. The world doesn't have to be perfect in order to improve it, or to enjoy improving it, right? The absurdity of man oppressing man is intolerable to me. All right, the absurdity of there not yet being a bridge somewhere, that it might be nice to have a bridge, that's okay. Building that bridge will be an accomplishment. It'll feel good to do. And if people aren't exploiting each other in order to do it, I think it can be quite enjoyable. Cooperation is enjoyable. This is something Gary doesn't really get, and yet he does, but he doesn't. And yet he seems to, like he could, but he doesn't. He likes to make people miserable. Right? Now, I also think some animals have a nice lifestyle. And yes, they can get sick. Yes, they can this and they can that. I so I still believe that overall some animals have nice lifestyles. Human beings, we can have comfortable lifestyles, but because of our dependency on war and slavery and the predominance still of rape and things like rape, oppression, I wouldn't want to categorize humans in that category at the moment. Okay? But I think bears do okay. I think lizards do okay. And I think part of living close to nature is that you don't last that long when things go wrong. Um, Gary was trying to say that it doesn't matter if you think you could actually convince the whole world to stop reproducing, or if you'd ever actually sterilize the world. What kind of rhetoric is that? Okay, this is one of the nice things about taking a different attitude is I don't have to ignore this sterilizing the world rhetoric, this bullshit sterilizing the world. The world started off sterile, Gary. Life came out of that anyway. So he says it doesn't matter how futile it is. He says he just wants to, people to say, please, people like me that realize there's problems in the world, to say, just please stop having it. Just please stop. It's okay to piss in the wind. That's fine as long as you piss. Why? So you could get piss all over yourself and be as miserable about life as Gary. He doesn't want there to be a glimmer of hope for anybody. It would be far better if we just piss all over each other so that this is the smell of urine and we're quite clear about how terrible everything is. Well, I don't think so. If it's futile, I don't see the purpose of doing it. Okay? I don't think that's a good reason to go on living in your own life. If it just to do something futile, it's certainly no better reason than to have kids to go on doing something futile, right? But in an absurd universe, that doesn't mean everything's futile, because if all you're trying to do is to make a nice cooperative place to live, like you're trying to make a, like you're a single celled creature and you're trying to make a body where the temperature is constant and the situation for all the cells in the body is comfortable and nice and productive, and that's what you're trying to do. Well, that isn't futile, because that can actually be accomplished. But that system will eventually die. Yeah, and that is not the automatic sign of failure. Trying to do the impossible and go on forever is failure. Yeah, and if you're really stuck in wanting a good thing to last a billion kabillion hours, and if it ever ends then it's failure, then yes, what you're trying to do is futile. But not everybody, not every animal or every human has that desire or tendency. Okay. Now, I think it's a good thought experiment. And I was going to go into why it's a good thought experiment, because it was going to make me answer the question of, well, yeah, in principle, if it could be stopped, would I want everybody to stop it? But fuck that. Why do that? There's no reason to shine off one stone in this turd of a get off my lawn philosophy that Gary's developed. There's no reason to do that. No reason to give positive when Gary used to 6 years ago have a lot more interests, and now all he talks about is this stupid get off my lawn life bullshit. Right? Go on living or stop living and shut the fuck up. That's what I would say, Gary. So I do like trying to fight absurdity. I like fighting bullies. I like fighting absurdity. All right. Nature is leads to life. To get rid of life, or to get rid of humans, is just setting things back a billion years, and it'll just happen again. Just happen again. We better go forward from here, and if we kill ourselves off trying, that's better than going back and waiting a billion years and killing ourselves trying then. Might as well try one now. We got a chance now, and if we don't make it, fine. Nature will just try again some other way. Nature, a sterile universe leads to life. We know that because here we fucking are, right? So, um, the universe is living because we're a part of the universe. Just like my body is living. The water in it, the calcium, oh, those aren't living, so my body isn't living. No, my body is a system that acts like a living system. The planet is covered in life. It acts like a living system. And the fucking universe is the same thing. There's life all throughout it, I bet. But even if the life is only on this speck, that's enough. The universe is living. Sterile universe creates life. This is ridiculous. You're just making an excuse to not care about all the failed things. It's like we're not getting anywhere with IRV. Here's why it doesn't matter, because we should all just stop living. Yeah, whatever. It's the same question as suicide. I've had enough of it. Well, no, I could still talk about the issue. I've had enough of Gary's use of comprehension problems, of incomprehension, applying incomprehension. I don't understand why war and slavery seem like such a big deal. Well, because get rid of war and slavery and we'll see how things are. Well, I know they still wouldn't be good enough. Good enough for you because you're a sensitive little brat that needs things perfect. I would be happy with them just being okay. I'm fine with the emotional struggles of being rejected by one lover and finding another, social finding groups that don't want you to be part of them and searching for groups that do, or in my case, not really wanting to be in a tight knit group. I like a loose association of associates and and friends that aren't all up in your business every second. That's what I like. I'm a little bit more of a solitary of an animal, right? That's fine. The ups and downs of that, that's what we write poems about. Okay, that's fine with me. It's not good enough for Gary because Gary's a sensitive little boy. Okay, that's your problem. That is your problem. I will never have that problem. And it's not what I'm thinking about. I'm just trying to describe what I was thinking about. And I think he could get it, but he doesn't want to. It doesn't play into what he wants. And I'll tell you, Gary, getting this little leadership role that you have in this little internet group is the worst thing that happened to you online. Ever. Worst thing. You now can't think of anything but recapitulating that little tiny drop of semi specialness. You want to go for that so much, and it's just ironic. It's all about how unspecial life is, and yet just a little drop of specialness has captivated your whole attention, right? And that's more interesting to you than an interesting conversation. Well, I've tried many years extra, and you aren't trying. So this is about the end. I will say war, rape, slavery. I never said that Gary supported those things. That's obvious. And this is why I was realizing he's not comprehending on purpose. I did not accuse him of being for war, rape, and slavery. I know he's against those things. So I was making the point of, hey, that looks worthwhile to get rid of those. Let's do that. Because if you think that it's unlikely to accomplish that, well, you're sure as hell not going to tell me that it's more likely to get people to stop having sex and kids. I mean, at least war and rape and slavery have bad reputations. They're kind of in the closet. People are when they start the war, they don't say, well, why? Because war's good. They have to make up another excuse. Yeah, I think you got a lot further to go, as in it'll never, ever, ever happen. It's impossible. If the human species is going to die, it's going to be by meteor or famine collapse. And it would have to be a meteor to destroy the whole planet, really, because, you can have a huge collapse of 99% of the people on the planet die. There's still plenty of a breeding population. So, I see lots of ramifications to war, lots of economic problems. You know, that bridge that we built, it got blown up. Now we don't have a bridge. Now the factory we used to create steel girders is also been blown up. I see lots of ramifications and wasted resources. And when I do the math, we could all be rich as shit, all the humans on this planet, if we didn't create a false scarcity, which war is a major is a major tool in accomplishing that false scarcity. Right? We have psychological tools that make us think there's scarcities that aren't there, and then when push comes to shove, we blow shit up and make a real scarcity. Yeah, I think we should get rid of that, and there's no way in hell I'm going to become an anti-natalist without trying that first. I'm not going to give in to that, or to Gary, who wants to piss in the wind just as a way for everything to smell like piss. So I think humans sometimes and often have acted like parasites, but they don't have to. That's just one mode of life. There's other modes of life. There's symbiosis, and even parasites become symbiotic sometimes. So it's a pretty complicated, subtle thing. And I don't want to live as a parasite, though. If humans are going to be like a parasite, then I'm not into it. Okay, but as we found out, maybe I'm not a human because I don't think an orgasm should last 3 months. Okay, so I'm not depressed that the orgasm only lasts whatever it lasts, 45 seconds, whatever it is, I don't know. And I think that's appropriate for that kind of a feeling, right? So I don't want humans to be parasites, right? And I don't even want to take this path of, well, the fig wasp was a parasite and became symbiotic. I don't want to be a weird hybrid symbiote parasite either, okay? And you don't have to be. That's not the only mode of life. Okay, I don't think the heart is a parasite on the body. I don't think the brain is a parasite on the body. I don't think the white blood cells are a parasite on the body just because they enjoy the nutrients of the body temperature. All right, so um, so consider my tolerance for your nutty scientific views over, Gary. And for everybody else, I hope this clarified any confusion you had on these issues about my interpretation of the myth of Sisyphus, why I'm focusing on ending war and slavery, why I think that's the root of most of the problems I find truly intolerable. Not just unpleasant, not just sad, not even just tragic, because a freak accident or an avoidable accident can be tragic, but that is not the same kind of intolerableness that I find when I think of slavery, rape, war, all the oppression that I believe war and a war mentality is behind. The end.